Five Nights at Freddy's 3, released on March 3rd, 2015, and proved to be a great installment to the FNaF franchise. Since then, however, many mysteries and debates have spawned from the game that are still around even 10 years later. One of these debates is what year FNaF 3 takes place in. For a long while, the majority of the community agreed that it took place in the year 2023. However, as of recently, many have started to doubt this and have turned to alternative years such as 2015 and 2017. There have been a decent amount of videos on this debate, mostly supporting the 2015 date. However, I disagree with pretty much most of these videos, and I still believe FNaF 3 is in 2023, due to evidence that will be discussed. I just want to say big thanks to the FNaF 3's wiki for some of the evidence and problems of all the FNaF 3 years. The link for the wiki will be in the description below. Hope everyone enjoys this video, and now let's dive into this debate. Just before we start, if you're new to this debate and are wondering where these years even came from, I got you. In the FNaF 3 Steam description, it says 30 years after Freddy Fazbear's Pizza closed its doors. Freddy's closed their doors 3 times before this. Firstly in 1985 after the MCI, Missing Children incident, then in 1987 due to the bite of 87 at the FNaF 2 location, and finally the FNaF 1 location as seen by the newspapers in-game, which says the restaurant will close by year's end. I believe FNaF 1 is set in 1993 due to the week before, Scott's 2015 Steam post, etc, etc. So 30 years after each of the years would be 2015, 2017 and 2023. Even if you believe FNaF 1 is set in a different year, some of the evidence for 2023 can also be attributed to those as well. Now, let's go through some of the evidence of FNaF 3 2023. The main evidence for FNaF 3 2023 is HRY223 from the Insanity ending in Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. Firstly, Henry mainly talks about the events of Follow Me in this audio tape, which should link the 223 back to FNaF 3.
He lured them all back to a familiar place, back with familiar tricks. He brought them all together.
Since Follow Me is associated with FNaF 3. Also, another point about HRY223 that I don't really see being discussed often is that it seems to be a pattern. HRY is shortened for Henry in 3 letters. The H is the first letter, and the R and Y are the 2 last letters of the name. This exact logic can also be used for 223 since it would be the first and 2 last numbers of 2023, therefore making it a pattern of some sorts. Also, it's seen in a secret ending as well, and it just so happens to have a similar number to 2023. The next point is FNaF 3 itself. In the FNaF 3 description, it seems to talk about the aftermath of the Follow Me minigame. At first, there are only empty shells, a hand, a hook. Since Follow Me is almost certainly after FNaF 1, this could imply the Steam description is talking about the closure of the FNaF 1 location. Also, going back to the description, it says the events that took place there have become nothing more than a rumor and childhood memory. For some reason, a lot of people seem to take this part as the smoking gun for FNaF 3 2015, but did we forget that the FNaF 1 location is the same location where the MCI took place? Henry basically confirms it in his HRY223 speech, and also the fact that there's a safe room at the location too basically seals the deal, so that part can be used for 2023 evidence. Another point is what Skull said in his FNaF 4 Halloween DLC Steam post on the 20th of August 2015. He said, "You know, when I released the first game over a year ago, I was amazed at how quickly everyone found every bit of lore and story. Then the same happened with Part 2. Fans and YouTubers dug in and found everything. Game Theory did an amazing video on Part 2, getting almost everything right. Then Part 3 came out, and once again the story was uncovered by the community. It seemed like there was nothing I could hide. Scott said we uncovered the story of FNaF 3 in 2015. The story encompasses everything, including the setting, so the 30 years line will be a part of it. Since 2023 was the most popular choice back in 2015 and was pretty much uncontested back in the day, this could imply we were correct with 2023. It should be of note that FNaF 3 2015 didn't even exist as a theory to the community back then, when that post released, as the MCI 85 theory came into fruition when the Silver was released in December 2015. Another piece of evidence comes from the Fazbear Fright story What We Found, which is a retelling of FNaF 3. In the story, the protagonist Hudson Foster is 23 years old. Furthermore, Dwayne, who's implied to be Phone Dude, is also 23 years old. And another major character named Barry, who is part of the Fry's crew, is also 23. All these 23 connections can imply FNaF 3 is associated with the number. Now for the evidence that isn't as strong as the ones just discussed, but could still hold some validity. Firstly, leading up to FNaF 3's release, there was a teaser simply called Offline. Inside the teaser's source code after it was later updated, there was a phrase which said, Five Nights at Freddy's, 30 years later, only one. Since FNaF 1 is officially titled Five Nights at Freddy's, this could imply the teaser is saying it's 30 years after FNaF 1. However, it's unclear if it's referring to this or the franchise name. Another piece of evidence is that FNaF 3 probably takes place in autumn, or fall for you American folks, due to what we found placing the retelling of FNaF 3 in that season. In 2023, a Friday the 13th falls in October, which could imply FNaF 3 takes place in that area. For 2017 believers, there is also a Friday the 13th in October 2017, so take that as you will. A minor piece of evidence is that the year 2023 is considered the year of the rabbit, and FNaF 3 just so happens to feature Springtrap as the main antagonist of the game. Another piece of evidence, and I'm almost certain this is just a stretch, but FNaF 3's release date is 3/2/15, and when you convert the date into the day, month, year format, you get 2/3/15. 2 and 3. However, this is always definitely a stretch, like even I can admit this. Another piece of evidence is that the Ultimate Guide seems to confirm, or at the very least heavily imply, that FNaF 3 is 30 years after FNaF 1. This is because it says in the FNaF 3 section of the guide, New Phone Guy explains it's been 30 years since the last Freddy shut down. It also applies HRY223 means 2023 as well. However, Tug is considered unreliable, and Phone Dude doesn't even say that in any of the calls to the Fright Guard, so all of this should be taken with a grain of salt. Now with pretty much all the evidence out of the way, let's go through the problems and debunks that 2015 believers normally use to cook 2023. 2015 believers normally use the survival logbook as confirmation for FNaF 3 2015. Basically, Michael Afton says regarding the pizza party price on page 71, which is $16, to find the real value of it on page 61. Real value is the price of something when adjusted for inflation. Once you go to page 61, you are met with a blackboard with numbers on it, which are 5 plus 4, which equates to 9. And then there's a 3 in the corner of the board, which you times the 9 by, so 9 times 3, which is $27. The 27 would be the $16 adjusted for inflation. If you have $16 in 1992, you would have $27 in 2015, which would confirm Mike used the logbook in 2015 in Fazbear's Fright, right? Wrong. Firstly, Mike doesn't use the logbook during FNaF 3. This is mainly due to the mention of Ralph's training cassette tapes in it, yet Phone Dude's excited reaction on night 2 implies it's his first time knowing about them and hearing them. Furthermore, if he did find them prior to FNaF 3, it would have made more sense for him to play them on night 1 and before. Also, there's quite literally no branding of the Fazbear Fright's name, like, even if it's meant to look like an authentic Fazbear Entertainment logbook, they'll still at least add their name in somewhere for promotional reasons. Also, this version of the value code method assumes FNaF 1 1992, which I don't see as likely anymore due to the week before heavily implying the FNaF 1 location uses the standard Monday to Friday schedule, as Ralph sends Capelli out of school after each shift, and since the story is the week before Mike's shift, this would mean he's also used this schedule. If true, only 1993 and 1999 are the possible years for FNaF 1, as November 8th to November 12th, the days Mike works on, is Monday to Friday in those years. So if you do the value code method but with 1993 instead, it would be $27 in 2017. But wait, wouldn't this imply FNaF 3 2015? Maybe, but Hyperdroid made a pretty good interpretation of it, which is that Scott can predict future inflation, 2023's actual value, so he used 2017, the year the logbook released, to show it take place in modern times. Basically, he was playing it safe. Also, it could just be a meta-Faz fact, or it might not have any lore relevance at all, and it was just there to find Cassidy's name. Who knows? Next up is Edwin Murray's age in the book series Tales from the Peterplex. In the Mimic story, it's said that Edwin is 24 years old in the 70s, probably 1979. And in the Storyteller, which takes place 40 years later, he is 64 during the Peterplex being operational. This would mean that the Storyteller takes place in 2019, and so FNaF 3 would take place before that. However, this is all wrong. Firstly, Secret of the Mimic debunked Tales games, as Fiona is still alive when David is around, and she probably dies at Fall Fest, yet in the book she died during childbirth. Also, Fiona and Edwin meet under different circumstances in the games. Also, it's implied Edwin dies in Secret of the Mimic, however it's inconclusive as of now, but anyways, Tails is debunked, and so is Edwin's age. Even if Tails was still canon, Edwin's age was already inconsistent in Tails alone, as in the Storyteller, there's a part in the story where Edwin is reflecting on his 24-year-old self, and Fiona is present during that flashback, so Edwin would be 28 really in the Mimic story, which replaced the Storyteller around 2015, so yeah, it's very inconsistent. Another debunk that people use is FNaF AR. This is because of the emails in-game having the dates 2019 and 2020. However, these are based on their IRL dates that they release and have zero lore relevance. FNaF AR also has Vanessa's username, Nessie1987, which many people think the 97 means 1997, and since unused content reveals she is 23, that would place FNaF AR in 2020. However, the same unused content reveals she was born in September, and so, since it's the 9th month of the year, Nessie97 could mean September 7th, or maybe it's just an arbitrary number. Furthermore, in Secret of Mimic, you can find Arnold's work order for September 7th, 1979, which seems to be when the game takes place, implying September 7th could have some importance. The next one is the Into the Pit game, which came out on the anniversary date in 2024, and the game probably takes place in either 2020 or 2021, probably 2021, and I'm just going to say off the bat, we should not be using Into the Pit for evidence for either side of the debate, to be honest. The game is just filled with random Easter eggs, and we basically have no idea what is lore relevant or not. The best we got was Megacat saying to use basic critical thinking for the Easter eggs, however that still doesn't help. Like a 2015 believer could just say, trash the gang in a dumpster is not law relevant, and then point to the stitch rate as confirmation for FNaF 3 2015, since he should exist after FFPS and not before. 2023 believers could also do the same with their evidence. It's basically just biased cherry picking on both sides. So basically, don't use Into the Pit as evidence, even if it might be a canon installment. We just have no idea what Easter eggs are law relevant or not. The next debunk that I see going around is that FNaF 3 released in 2015, therefore it takes place in 2015. Bruh, in this logic, FNaF 1 and 2 take place in 2014. Yeah, not really good evidence. And there we have it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope everyone enjoyed it. This is my first actual long-length theory video, so constructive criticism is welcome, and please be respectful to others in the comments, as it's just creepy begging a lot at the end of the day. If you want to see videos by people who believe FNaF 3 2015, in case you want to see both sides of the debate, and to come to your own conclusions, I'll link Gibby's and Fright God's video in the description, and subscribe to them as well, as they seem chill. Yeah, so again, thanks for watching, like and subscribe would be appreciated, and I'll see everyone later. Goodbye.